The throne room of the Kethrani Empire was cold and dark. Black stone walls rose high into the shadows. Purple flames burned in tall metal bowls, giving the room a strange glow. Princess Valera stood before her father, Emperor Theron, with her hands folded behind her back. She kept her face calm, but inside, her heart was beating fast. She knew something was wrong. Her father had called her here alone, without her sisters or the royal advisors. That never happened unless there was bad news. Emperor Theron was old now. His silver skin had grown pale, and the violet light in his eyes was not as bright as it used to be. He had ruled the Kethrani for over 300 years, but the war had aged him. The war against the Dominion had taken everything from their people. "Valera," he said, his voice heavy with tiredness, "I have made a decision. It was not easy, but it is the only way to save our empire." Valera waited. She was the third daughter, not the heir to the throne. She had always been free to study, to write, to help refugees from the outer worlds. She was not important in the politics of the empire, or so she had thought. "The Dominion grows stronger every day," her father continued. "Our fleets are broken. Our colonies are burning. We cannot win this war alone. We have allies," Valera said carefully. "The merchants of Korra, the free worlds. They are weak. They cannot help us." Emperor Theron stood from his throne and walked slowly down the steps toward her. "There is only one power in the galaxy that can turn this war around. The Terran Confederation." Valera felt a chill run through her body. Humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humans. They were a young species, only 200 years into space travel. They came from a single small planet called Earth, far away in a quiet corner of the galaxy. Most Kethrani thought of them as primitive, aggressive, strange, but they were also feared. No one could explain how humans had grown so powerful so quickly. They had fought wars against species much older than themselves, and won. They built ships that moved faster than they should. They adapted to every challenge. They did not give up. "What do the humans want?" Valera asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Her father looked at her with sad eyes. "A marriage. A political union between our peoples. They want a princess of the Kethrani to marry one of their commanders." The room seemed to spin around Valera. She grabbed the edge of a stone pillar to steady herself. "Marriage," she repeated. "To a human. His name is Kang Do-Yon. He is a commander in the Terran Navy. They call him the Hero of Proxima. He is one of their most respected officers." Valera shook her head slowly. "Father, I cannot. Humans live for less than 100 years. They are small. They are fragile. How can I bind myself to one of them?" "You can, and you will." Her father's voice was firm now. "Your sisters are already promised to Kethrani nobles. You are the only one who can do this. And you must understand, Valera, this is not a request. The humans will not help us without this alliance. Without their help, our empire will fall. Our people will die. Everything we have built will turn to ash." Valera closed her eyes. She thought of the refugees she had helped, children without parents, families without homes, all because of the Dominion War. If she refused this marriage, how many more would suffer? "Why do the humans want this?" she asked quietly. "What do they gain?" "Respect," her father said. "The galaxy still sees them as newcomers. A marriage to a Kethrani princess will give them standing among the older empires, and I believe they truly want peace. They are not our enemies, Valera. They could be our greatest friends." Valera opened her eyes and looked at her father. He was not a cruel man. He had always loved his daughters. She could see the pain in his face. He did not want to do this to her, but he had no choice. Neither did she. "When?" she asked. "You will leave in 3 days. You will go to a human station near their homeworld. The wedding will take place within a month." 3 days. Valera felt like she was falling into a deep hole with no bottom. In 3 days, she would leave her home, her family, everything she knew. She would travel across the galaxy to marry a stranger. A human stranger. "What do you know about him?" she asked. "This Commander Kong." Her father handed her a small data tablet. Everything we could find. He is 34 years old by human counting. He has served in their navy for 15 years. He is not married. He has one sister. He is known for being calm, intelligent, and honorable. He paused. The humans chose him carefully. They believe he is their best chance to make this alliance work. Valera looked at the tablet. There was a picture of the human. He had dark hair, dark eyes, and a serious face. He looked ordinary, unremarkable. Nothing like the warriors of legend or the princes from HFY Stories. This was to be her husband. "I need time alone," she said. Her father nodded. "I understand. But Valera, please believe me. I would not ask this of you if there was any other way." Valera bowed to her father and walked out of the throne room. Her steps echoed on the cold stone floor. Guards stood at attention as she passed, but she did not look at them. She walked through the palace corridors until she reached her private garden. It was the only place on the homeworld where green things grew. She had planted every flower herself, brought seeds from a dozen different planets. She sat down on a stone bench and looked up at the sky. 3 moons hung above her, pale and distant. In 3 days, she would never see those moons again. Valera thought about duty. From the day she was born, she had been taught that the Empire came first. Personal feelings did not matter. Personal dreams did not matter. A princess served her people. Always. But she had never imagined it would mean this. She thought about the human commander, Kong Doyan. What was he feeling right now? Was he also sitting alone somewhere wondering about his strange alien bride? Did he want this marriage? Or was he being forced into it just like her? Maybe they had something in common already. Valera stood up and took a deep breath. She was a princess of the HFY Empire. She had faced hard things before. She would face this too. She would go to the humans. She would marry their commander. She would do whatever it took to save her people. But she made a silent promise to herself. She would not lose who she was. She would not become weak. And if this human treated her badly, if he tried to own her or control her, she would find a way to fight back. She was Valera of HFY, and she would survive. The journey to human space took 12 days. Valera spent most of that time in her cabin reading everything she could find about Earth and its people. The more she read, the more confused she became. Humans were strange creatures. They had spent most of their history fighting each other. They had almost destroyed their own planet many times. They had diseases, famines, and wars that killed millions of their own kind. By all logic, they should have died out long ago, but they did not die. They kept going. They fixed their problems, built new things, and reached for the stars. In just 200 years, they had become one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. How? Valera could not understand it. On the 13th day, her ship arrived at Terran's station horizon. It was a massive structure orbiting the moon of Earth. Through her window, Valera could see the human homeworld below. It was a small planet, blue and green and white, floating in the darkness of space. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. Nothing like the burned and broken worlds of the HFY border. A HFY guard came to her door. "Your Highness, we have docked. The humans are waiting for you." Valera stood and looked at herself in the mirror. She wore the formal robes of a HFY princess, deep purple with silver patterns. Her long white hair was arranged in the traditional style, held up with pins made of crystal. She looked exactly like what she was, a royal bride, ready to be given away. She hated it, but she kept her face calm and walked out of her cabin. Her guards formed around her as she moved through the ship toward the docking bay. The doors opened, and she stepped onto the human station. The first thing she noticed was the noise. Humans were everywhere, talking, laughing, arguing. The station was full of activity, full of life. Screens displayed information in dozens of languages. Music played from somewhere. Children ran past, chasing each other and screaming with joy. It was chaos. But it was also somehow wonderful. Then she saw him. Commander Kong Doyan stood at the front of the welcoming party. He was shorter than her, like all humans. His dark hair was cut short, and he wore a simple navy uniform with medals on the chest. His face was calm and serious, but his eyes were warm. When Valera approached, he bowed to her. Not a human bow, but a Kathrani bow. Deep, respectful, with his right hand over his heart. He had studied her culture. "Your Highness," he said, in perfect, high Kathrani. His accent was not quite right, but his words were clear. "Welcome to Terran Station Horizon." "I am honored to meet you." Valera was so surprised that she almost forgot to respond. She had expected broken words, maybe an interpreter. "Not this. Commander Kang," she said in his language, English. "Thank you for your welcome." Now it was his turn to look surprised. A small smile appeared on his face. "You speak English?" "I have been studying, so have I." He gestured toward the station. "Please, let me show you." "To your quarters. I know this must be very strange for you. I want you to be comfortable here." He did not try to touch her or take her arm. He simply walked beside her, keeping a respectful distance. He pointed out different parts of the station as they walked. The gardens, the medical center, the schools for human children. "There is also a Kathroni Cultural Center," he said. "We built it last month. We wanted you to have a place that feels like home." Valera did not know what to say. She had expected humans to be cold, maybe even hostile. She had prepared herself for insults and disrespect. Instead, she found kindness. It made her uncomfortable. She did not know how to react to kindness. Her quarters were beautiful. Large windows looked out at the stars. The furniture was a mix of human and Kathrani styles. Someone had even placed purple flowers in a vase by the bed, her favorite color. "I hope this is acceptable," Do-Yan said. "If you need anything changed, please tell me." "It is acceptable," Valera said stiffly. Do-Yan nodded. "I know this arrangement was not your choice. It was not mine either. But I want you to know that I will never force you to do anything. This marriage is political, but that does not mean we cannot treat each other with respect." He paused and looked at her directly. "I am not your enemy, Valera. I hope in time I can be your friend." Before she could respond, a young human woman burst into the room. She was shorter than Do-Yan, with the same dark hair and bright eyes. She was smiling widely. "Is she here? Is she here?" The woman saw Valera and gasped. "Oh, you are so beautiful. I mean, I knew Kathroni were beautiful. Everyone says so, but wow." Do-Yan sighed. "Valera, this is my sister, Kong Soman. She is a xenolinguist. She studies alien languages and cultures." "I apologize for her excitement." "Do not apologize." Somin grabbed Valera's hands. "I have been waiting to meet you for weeks. I have so many questions. Is it true that Kathrani can see colors that humans cannot? And that your music uses frequencies we cannot hear? And what about your poetry? I read some translations, but I want to understand the original." Valera felt overwhelmed, but also something else. Something she had not expected. She felt welcomed. Over the next few weeks, Soman became her guide to human life. The young woman was always talking, always curious, always laughing. She taught Valera about human food, human music, human history. She took Valera to see Earth from the observation deck. "You almost destroyed it, you know," Solomon said one evening as they watched the planet turn below them. "Many times. Wars, pollution, climate change. We came so close to the end, but you survived," Valera said. "We did. Not because we are smart or strong, but because we refuse to give up. That is the human thing. We are stubborn. We keep trying, even when everything seems hopeless." Omin smiled. "My brother is like that. He never stops trying to make things better, even when it is hard, even when it hurts." Valera thought about Do-Yan. In the weeks since her arrival, he had been nothing but patient and kind. He visited her every day, but never stayed too long. He sent her books about human philosophy and asked her to share Kathrani poetry in return. He learned more of her language every day. He never demanded anything from her. Not time, not attention, not affection. It was so different from what she had expected. One night, Valera could not sleep. She walked through the quiet station until she found a small observation room. Do-yeon was already there, sitting alone, looking at the stars. "Cannot sleep?" he asked. "No." She sat down across from him. "May I ask you something?" "Anything. Why did you agree to this marriage? You could have said no." Do-yeon was quiet for a long moment. "At first I thought it was my duty. My commanders asked me, and I said yes, because it would help our people and yours." He looked at her. "But then I read about you, your work with refugees, your writings about peace, the way you stand against those who want more war. And I thought that maybe this could be more than politics." "What do you mean?" "I mean that I would like to know you, Valera. Not the princess. Not the symbol you. The real person." He smiled softly. "If you will let me." Valera did not answer. But for the first time since leaving her home, she felt something that was not fear or anger or sadness. She felt hope. The wedding took place on a small moon between Kathrani and human space. It was neutral ground, chosen carefully so that neither side would feel like they had surrendered to the other. Ships from both civilizations filled the sky, thousands of them. Watching and waiting, Valera stood in a small room behind the ceremony hall, looking at herself in the mirror. She wore a white gown, the human tradition. But it was decorated with Kathrani crystals that caught the light and threw small rainbows across the walls. Her hair was loose, another human custom, falling down her back like a river of silver. She looked like a bride. She felt like a prisoner. Salman came in carrying a small box. "I brought you something," she said. "It is a human tradition. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue." She opened the box. Inside was a small blue flower, pressed and preserved under glass. "This flower is from Earth," Salman explained. "From our grandmother's garden. She gave it to our mother on her wedding day. And now I am giving it to you. You are family now, Valera, whether you feel like it or not." Valera took the flower carefully. It was so small, so fragile, but it had survived for generations, passed from mother to daughter. There was something beautiful about that. "Thank you," she said quietly. The ceremony was long and complicated. There were Kathrani rituals involving light and sound, ancient words spoken in languages that even Valera barely understood. There were human rituals, too, the exchange of rings, the reading of vows, the lighting of candles. Billions of people watched across both civilizations. This marriage was more than a wedding. It was a symbol, a promise that two species could put aside their differences and build something new together. When it was time for the vows, Valera spoke hers in High Kathrani. Her voice was strong and clear, filling the great hall. She promised to honor the alliance, to work for peace, to stand beside her husband in times of trouble. Then Do-yeon spoke. He spoke in High Kathrani too, his accent much better now than it had been when they first met. He made the same promises she had made, but then he added something more. "I promise to listen when you speak," he said, looking into her eyes, "to learn from you. To respect you as an equal, never as property. I promise that your voice will always matter to me, and I promise to earn your trust, not demand it." Valera felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away quickly, but Do-yeon had seen. He gave her a small, gentle smile. The official pronounced them married. The crowd cheered. Music played. Fireworks exploded in the sky outside, visible through the great windows of the hall. Valera and Do-yeon walked through the crowd together, accepting congratulations and blessings. His hand was warm in hers. He did not grip too tightly or try to lead her. They walked as partners, side by side. The celebration lasted for hours. There was food and dancing and speeches. Valera smiled and nodded and said the right things, but inside she felt exhausted. By the time they finally escaped to their private quarters, she could barely stand. Their room was large and comfortable. A fire burned in the fireplace, casting warm light across the walls. The bed was huge, covered in soft blankets and pillows. Valera stood by the window, looking out at the stars. She heard Do-yeon moving behind her, but she did not turn around. "Valera," he said softly, "look at me." She turned. Do-Yan had taken off his formal jacket. He looked tired too, but his eyes were kind. I am going to sleep over there, he said, pointing to a large chair by the fire. You take the bed, Valera blinked. What? This marriage is real in the eyes of both our peoples. But between us, between you and me, nothing is real until you want it to be. He sat down in the chair and leaned back. I meant what I said in my vows. I will not demand anything from you. Not tonight. Not ever. Valera did not move. Most Kathrani husbands would not be so patient. I am not Kathrani. Do-Yan smiled. And I am not interested in being your master. I am interested in being your partner. But that takes time. It takes trust. And you have no reason to trust me yet. Why? The word burst out of her before she could stop it. Why are you like this? Everyone told me humans were aggressive, brutal, that I would have to fight to keep any part of myself. Some humans are like that, Do-Yan admitted. We have our share of cruel people, but we also have people who believe in something better. People who think that strength means protecting others, not controlling them. He looked at her with those calm, dark eyes. I am trying to be that kind of person. I do not always succeed, but I try. Valera sat down on the edge of the bed. Her mind was spinning. Everything she had been taught about humans, everything she had feared, none of it matched the man in front of her. I do not understand you, she said. That is okay. I do not fully understand myself sometimes. Do-Yan laughed softly. But I would like to understand you, if you will let me. Over the next few months, they built a strange kind of friendship. They talked every day, sharing stories from their different worlds. Do-Yan told her about growing up on Earth, about his parents who had died when he was young, about Soman, who had kept him going through the hardest times. Valera told him about the Kathrani court, about the pressure of being a princess, about her secret dreams of traveling to distant stars and writing books about what she found. You should do it, Do-Yan said one evening. Write your books, travel. I will not stop you. You are my husband. You have the right to keep me here. I have the right, Do-Yan agreed. But having the right to do something does not mean it is the right thing to do. He reached across the table and touched her hand gently. Your dreams matter, Valera. Your happiness matters. Not just to the Alliance. To me, something shifted inside Valera that night. She began to see Do-Yan not as a stranger or an enemy, but as something else. Something more. She noticed things about him. The way he always made sure she ate before him at meals. The way he remembered small details she mentioned and brought them up later. The way he defended her when other humans made rude comments about Kathrani culture. She noticed that he was kind not just to her, but to everyone. He spent his free days visiting wounded soldiers in hospitals. He helped young officers with their studies. He sent money to organizations that help children on struggling colony worlds. He was good, truly good. Not because anyone was watching, but because that was who he was. One night, Valera could not sleep. She walked to the sitting room and found Do-Yan there, reading by lamplight. What are you reading? She asked. Kathrani, poetry, he said. I want to understand the beauty that shaped you. Valera sat down beside him, closer than she had ever sat before. Read to me, she said, and he did. His voice soft in the darkness, speaking words from her home in his human accent. It was not perfect, but it was beautiful anyway. When he finished, Valera leaned her head against his shoulder. He went still, barely breathing. Thank you, she whispered, for being patient, for being kind, for being you. Do-Yan put his arm around her carefully, gently. Always, he said, and Valera believed him. The warning came at midnight. Valera was asleep when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. She jumped out of bed, her heart pounding, and found Do-Yan already dressed in his uniform, strapping on weapons. What is happening? She demanded the Dominion. His face was grim. They have launched a massive attack. 300 ships. They are heading straight for Kethra Prime. Valera felt the blood drain from her face. Kethra Prime, her homeworld, her father, her sisters, everyone she had ever known. "I have to go," Doyon said. "I am taking command of the Terran fleet. We are joining your people to defend the planet. I am coming with you." "No," he grabbed her shoulders gently but firmly. "It is too dangerous. I need you to stay here, where you are safe. My family is on that planet. Well, and I promise you, I will do everything I can to protect them." He looked into her eyes. "But I cannot fight and worry about you at the same time. Please, Valera, stay here. Let me do this." Every part of her wanted to argue, but she saw the fear in his eyes. Fear not for himself, but for her. And she understood. "Come back to me," she whispered. Doyon kissed her forehead, soft and quick. It was the first time he had kissed her. "Well, I promise." Then he was gone. Valera spent the next 12 hours in the command center of the station, watching the battle unfold on giant screens. The Dominion fleet was enormous, 300 warships against barely 100 Allied vessels. Kethrani cruisers and Terran destroyers flew side by side, but they were outnumbered badly. The fighting was brutal. Ships exploded in flashes of light, communication channels filled with screams and static. The Dominion pushed forward, closer and closer to the planet. Valera watched as Kethrani admirals argued about what to do. Some wanted to retreat and save what ships they could. Others wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. But there would be no mercy. The Dominion did not take prisoners. Then, Doyon's voice came over the communication channel, calm and steady. "This is Commander Kong Doyon to all Allied forces. We hold the line. Do you hear me? We hold. Every minute we fight is another minute for civilian transports to escape. Every ship we destroy is one less that threatens innocent lives. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We hold." Something changed in the battle after that. The Allied ships stopped falling back. They formed a wall between the Dominion and the planet. They fought with everything they had. Valera watched the human ships especially. They were smaller than Kethrani vessels, less advanced, with weaker shields and lighter weapons. But they moved like nothing she had ever seen. Human pilots performed maneuvers that should have been impossible, spinning and diving and attacking from angles that made no sense, and they did not stop. Even when their ships were damaged, even when they were dying, they kept fighting. They threw themselves into gaps in the line. They rammed enemy vessels when their weapons failed. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. Valera had read about human stubbornness. She had heard stories about their refusal to give up. But seeing it was different. Seeing it was terrifying and beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Hours passed. The Dominion fleet began to crack. Their commanders had expected an easy victory, a broken enemy that would run. Instead, they found warriors who refused to die. Then Doyon made his move, his ship. The Terran cruiser Horizon's Edge broke from the main line and headed straight for the Dominion flagship. It was a massive vessel, 10 times the size of Doyon's ship, bristling with weapons. "What is he doing?" Valera breathed. An officer beside her shook his head. "He is going to take out their command ship. If it falls, the Dominion fleet will lose coordination. But he will never survive the approach." Valera gripped the edge of the console so hard her fingers ached. On the screen, she watched Doyen's ship fly through a storm of fire. Explosions bloomed around it. Pieces of the hull tore away. But still it kept going. Other Terran ships followed. They formed a wedge around Doyen's vessel, taking hits meant for him, dying so he could reach the target. Horizon's Edge reached the Dominion flagship and opened fire. At such close range, the weapons tore through the enemy's shields. Secondary explosions rippled across the massive ship. Then, with a flash brighter than a star, the flagship exploded. The Dominion fleet broke. Without their command ship, without their leaders, the enemy vessels scattered. The Allied forces chased them, destroying many as they fled. It was over. They had won. But Valera was not celebrating. She was staring at the screen where Horizon's Edge had been. The ship was gone, lost in the explosion of the flagship. "No," she whispered. No, no, no. She ran from the command center, ignoring the shouts behind her. She ran to the communication hub and demanded contact with any rescue vessels. For hours, there was nothing, just static and silence. Then, finally, a signal. This is Rescue Team 7. We have found survivors from the horizon's edge. Commander Kang is alive. Repeat, Commander Kang is alive. Valera collapsed against the wall, tears streaming down her face. He was alive. Barely, but alive. She took a ship to the rescue station immediately. When she arrived, doctors tried to stop her from entering the medical bay. He is in critical condition, they said. Multiple broken bones. Internal bleeding. Severe burns. I do not care, Valera said. Let me through. They let her through. Doyan lay on a medical bed, connected to dozens of machines. His body was wrapped in bandages. His face was pale, his eyes closed. He looked broken, fragile, human. Valera took his hand. It was cold, but she felt a weak pulse. You fool, she whispered. You reckless, stupid, brave fool. Doyan's eyes opened slowly. He looked at her and managed a tiny smile. Told you, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Told you I would come back. You almost did not. It almost does not count. He squeezed her hand weakly. Your family is safe. The planet is safe. We won. Valera leaned down and pressed her forehead against his. Tears fell from her eyes onto his face. I thought I lost you, she said. I was so scared. I did not know how much I needed you until I thought you were gone. I know. Doyan lifted his other hand, trembling with effort, and touched her cheek. I know because I felt the same. When I was flying into that battle, all I could think about was you. Getting back to you. Valera kissed him then. Really kissed him, for the first time. It was gentle and careful because he was so hurt, but it was real. It was everything she had been too afraid to give before. I love you, she said when they parted. The words surprised her, but they were true. I love you, Kang Doyan. I love you too, he whispered. I have loved you for a long time. I was just waiting for you to be ready to hear it. Valera stayed by his side through the long weeks of recovery. She held his hand through surgeries. She helped him learn to walk again. She read him Kethrani poetry when the pain was too much, and he read her human stories when she was too tired to speak. And somewhere in those weeks, she stopped being a princess forced into marriage. She became a wife who had chosen her. Husband, 1 year had passed since the Battle of Kethra Prime. The war was over. The Dominion, broken and leaderless after their great defeat, had agreed to peace talks. The alliance between the Kethrani Empire and the Terran Confederation had grown stronger than anyone had imagined. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges began. For the first time in centuries, Galaxy seemed to be moving toward something better. Valera stood on the balcony of her home, watching the sunrise. She and Doyan lived on a small station between their two territories now, a place that belonged to neither world and both. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was exactly what they needed. Behind her, she heard familiar footsteps. You are awake early, Doyan said, coming to stand beside her. He moved carefully now, still recovering from his injuries. He would always have scars. He would always walk with a slight limp. But he was alive, and that was all that mattered. I was thinking, Valera said. About what? About how different everything is? 1 year ago, I was terrified. I thought my life was over. I thought I was being sent to marry a monster. She turned to look at him. I was wrong about so many things. Doyan smiled and took her hand. I was scared too, you know. The great Princess Valera, coming to judge us primitive humans. I thought you would hate me. I almost did at first. But you made it very difficult. That was the plan. He laughed softly. Kill you with kindness. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars fade as the sun rose. I received a message from the Galactic Council, Valera said eventually. They want me to give a speech at their next assembly. About the Alliance. About what it means for the future. What will you say? I am not sure yet. But I know what I want to say. I want to tell them about humans. About what I learned. Doyan raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerous. We have a reputation to protect. Everyone thinks we are tough warriors. You're tough warriors. But you are also so much more than that. Valera squeezed his hand. I want the galaxy to see what I see. Not the violence or the aggression. The hope, the determination, the ability to love so deeply even though your lives are so short. The day of the speech arrived. The Galactic Council met on a massive station at the center of known space. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the Great Hall, their faces displayed on hovering screens. It was the largest gathering in galactic history. Valera stood at the central podium, dressed in a gown that combined Kathrani elegance with human simplicity. Doyen sat in the front row of the Terran delegation, his uniform decorated with new medals. Beside him was Salman, bouncing with excitement. Members of the Galactic Council, Valera began. 1 year ago, I stood in this hall as a reluctant bride. I had been told to marry a human to save my people. I did not want to do it. I thought I was sacrificing my future for politics. She paused and looked out at the crowd. I was wrong. I was not sacrificing anything. I was gaining something beyond measure. She told them about her journey. About arriving at Terran Station Horizon and expecting to find barbarians. About meeting Do-Yoon and discovering patience and kindness instead. About learning human history, human culture, human dreams. We called them primitives, she said. Short-lived, insignificant. We were wrong. Humans are many things. They are loud. They are messy. They argue among themselves constantly. But they are also the most remarkable species I have ever encountered.
Ow.
The hall was silent. Every eye, every sensor, every floating screen was focused on her. Humans do not conquer through strength alone. They inspire. They adapt. They refuse to give up, even when everything seems lost. My husband led a tiny ship against an enemy flagship, knowing he would probably die. When I asked him why, he said that some things are worth dying for. Protecting people. Defending hope. Proving that the darkness does not always win. She thought about Do-Yoon, bleeding and broken in that medical bay. Still smiling because her family was safe. Humans love with a ferocity that burns brighter than any star. They live for less than 100 years, and yet they accomplish more in that brief time than many species accomplish in millennia. They do not let their mortality make them small. They let it make them brave. She looked directly at the Terran delegation. At Salman, who was wiping tears from her eyes. At Do-Yoon, who was watching her with pride and love written across his face. My husband taught me that the measure of a species is not in how long they live, but in how deeply they live. Humans live deeply. They love deeply. They fight deeply. And they hope deeply, even when hope seems foolish. Valera straightened her shoulders. The Kathrani Empire is proud to call humanity our allies, our partners, our family. And I am proud to call one human my partner, my equal, and my heart. She stepped back from the podium. For a long moment there was silence. Then the applause began. It started in the Terran section, but it spread quickly. Kathrani delegates stood and clapped. Other species joined them. The sound filled the great hall like thunder. Later, after the ceremony was over, Valera found Do-Yoon in a quiet corner of the station. He was standing by a window, looking out at the stars. That was quite a speech, he said. I meant every word, I know. He turned to face her. But you know what the best part was? What? Seeing Salman cry? I have been trying to make her cry at speeches for years. You did it in one try. Valera laughed and wrapped her arms around him. He held her close, careful of the scars that still ached sometimes. What happens now? She asked. Whatever we want. The war is over. The alliance is strong. For the first time in years, we have a real future. He pulled back and looked into her eyes. What do you want, Valera? Not what you were supposed to want. What do you actually want? She thought about it. A year ago, she had wanted freedom. She had wanted to escape the cage of royal duty. Now she realized that freedom did not mean being alone. It meant choosing who you wanted to be with. I want to travel, she said. To see distant stars? To write about the things I find, and I want you beside me. Always. That sounds perfect. Doyen smiled. Let us go see the universe together. On a different part of the station, Solomon sat with a group of young Kathrani diplomats. They were asking her questions about humans, about Earth, about everything. Your people are very strange, one of them said, but also very interesting. That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said about us, Solomon replied with a grin. Your sister-in-law gave a beautiful speech. She really loves your brother. She does. And he loves her. That is how it works with humans. We love hard and fast and forever. It is stupid and wonderful and absolutely terrifying. The young Kathrani tilted his head. Are you not afraid? Knowing how little time you have. Solomon thought about it. Sometimes, but mostly I am grateful. Grateful for every day, every moment, every person I get to love. Because knowing the time is short makes every second matter more. She looked across the room to where Valera and Doyen stood together, holding hands, laughing at something only they could hear. Look at them, she said softly. 1 year ago, they were strangers. Enemies, almost. Now they are everything to each other. That is what humans do. We build love out of nothing. We create hope where there was none. We make miracles happen, not because we are special, but because we refuse to believe that miracles are impossible. The Kathrani followed her gaze. Perhaps we have much to learn from your kind. Maybe, Solomon smiled. Or maybe we can learn from each other. That is the whole point, is it not? Nobody has all the answers. But together we might find some. The station hummed around them, full of life and noise and possibility. Outside, the stars burned in the endless dark. And somewhere between those distant lights, a human and a Kathrani began planning their journey across the galaxy, not as princess and commander, not as symbols of an alliance, just as two people who had found each other against all odds and who would never let go.